I'm Lord Yoda, founder and president of American College Cricket, and I'm pleased today to have a wonderful guest with me, a very successful Wall Street investment and financial planner, Mr. Jerry Kemper, 33 years on Wall Street. And it's a pleasure to have you here, Jerry, and perhaps you can tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Okay, Lloyd, sure. Thank you very much for having me with you today. As you said, my name is Jerry Kemper, and I've been an investment advisor since 1988, 33 years, as of last June. And I've been with my current firm, Washington International Securities, for 18 years, as of last May. Actually, I'm with a subsidiary of Washington International named Brill Securities, and manage my clients' securities portfolios, which consist of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. They could either be stock mutual funds or bond mutual funds. And I also occasionally get involved with options. And sometimes I also provide my clients with IPOs, initial public offerings. My main focus, probably 85% of my business, is individual equities, picking individual stocks and buying and selling those. So that's my prime area of focus.
Wonderful. Now, one of the reasons I wanted to have this chat with you is because I know it can be really helpful to anybody, but particularly my players, when they graduate and they go out into the world. Many of them as professionals get into pretty good jobs, but of course, planning your financial future is a challenge in and of itself, and sometimes we're not always very prepared for that. Now, each person, of course, each one of your clients can have their specific path for planning their financial future. But we're going to look at it generally. No doubt there can be specific things, lots of specific things that may be added to each person's financial and investment plans. So let's say, for instance, I'm a typical American college cricket player, and I graduate, and I'm getting into a well-paid professional job. Of course, I have responsibilities. I just started working. Is that too early to get investment advice?
It sounds like you're referring to somebody who's in their early 20s, Lloyd?
Yeah, generally speaking, exactly.
No, I would say it's definitely not too early to get started. I have some clients, again, I've been an investment advisor for 33 years. This June, it'll be 34. And some of my clients have been clients that I've had since my first or second year in the business. And some of those people who are in their mid-50s were in their early 20s when they became clients of mine. In some cases, they started off their accounts pretty modestly and have come to be very active and fairly large accounts. So in somebody's early 20s, it's definitely not too early to get started. I think the earlier the better. Also, I have some clients who over the years wanted their children to get exposure to the stock market. And in some cases, they've wanted their son or daughter to get involved when they were as young as 14. Of course, at that age, a person cannot open an account on their own. You have to be 18 to do that. So what they do is they open what's called a custodial account, and that's essentially a joint account between someone who's under the age of 18 and their parent. And this way, the person can get exposure to the stock market before they're 18. Then when they turn 18, they can have their own individual account. But the advantage is they've already had 4 years, say they start when they're 14, 4 years of exposure to the stock market through a custodial account, and they've got some experience. So in some cases, I've had clients who got started when they were very young, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. And I think the earlier that somebody gets started, the better.
Very good. Now, so let's say I graduate and have a very good job. Then at some point, or maybe I already am dating someone steadily, like many of our alums. I'm going to buy a nice car. I plan on getting married perhaps six years after graduation. And with my wife, we'll buy a house. Now, that sounds like a solid plan to me, right? But
Absolutely.
obviously, investments can add to that or can help that plan. Tell me, what do you think about that? I mean, investments can, right, add to that plan.
Absolutely, Lloyd. If somebody has a specific financial goal, like funding their child's education in college, or buying a house or anything else, a car for themselves and their wife, what they can do is open an account with that goal in mind and go about their life as though that money doesn't exist. So every time they get paid at work, whether it's monthly or every 2 weeks or whatever, put aside some of that money for that account. And they don't have that money because they're not going to touch it. That's the only way that they can let it grow as much as possible. And that takes discipline. And then at whatever point they want to access that money to buy whatever it is they were investing for, then they've got that money set aside in the account. And if they do it that way, it's a lot easier than if they put money into their, let's say, savings account at the bank, which they're constantly, but even occasionally withdrawing money from for other things. If the money is together, it's harder to keep that money aside and to not touch it. So it's much better to separate that money that they're investing. And that's how somebody who's investing can achieve a financial goal easier than if they're just trying to save money in a savings account with the bank.
Very good. And you touched upon, of course, what you can do with a child. So if you can just say a little bit more about that, because I have noticed that a lot of my players, by around age 30 or so, they're getting their first child. So obviously, you mentioned custodial account. If you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it would be the same type of plan where, let's say when the child is born, that would be a good time to start saving for their college education, because usually somebody begins college, at least in America, when they're about 18 years old. So that would allow 18 years of investing to fund their child's education. Hopefully at the end of that time, when they want to withdraw at least part of that money for their college education of their child, then it would have grown in a very large way between the amount of money that they're putting into it every so often, like every time they get paid, and also the capital appreciation of what has been invested. So that would be a way to do it. The custodial account is a way for the child to get exposure to the stock market before they're old enough to open an account of their own. So they wouldn't be able to place any orders with their financial advisor. The parent would have to do that. But it would be a learning experience for the child until they turn 18, at which point they can start to do it on their own legally and with a lot more confidence because they've already had exposure to the stock market.
Right. Now, even in this short show, we've put out a lot of information there that can be really useful. But of course, the whole world of finance and investment is huge. So I hope we can have more conversations like this in the future. But before we go, I want to ask you one thing. Of course, you've been 33 years on Wall Street, very successful. You're dealing with some pretty big movers and shakers, no doubt. Are, let's say, my guys, recent graduates out of college, maybe a couple working for a few years, can they be part of your clientele as well?
Absolutely. My clientele is not all one demographic in terms of age, geography, or how large they start off in terms of investing. For example, I have some clients talking about age who are in their 90s, and occasionally people who are even in their 70s or 80s open an account with me, which is not too common because usually at that point in somebody's life, they've already got an established relationship with somebody who they're investing with. But it's happened, especially through referrals. On the other end of the age spectrum, there have been people who have started investing with me when they were in their early teens by way of these custodial accounts. And in terms of people starting with me on their own, a regular individual account, they're the ones who are actually calling the shots and investing their money. People have started investing with me when they were as young as 20. So it's really never too early to start in terms of the amount of the account. Again, over time, some clients of mine who have started off not with the largest accounts, but pretty modestly have developed into very big accounts. So I can work with people like that. I'm not going to turn somebody away if they have some money to invest and if they have a sincere interest in investing over time.
Very good. I'm glad our guys can hear that directly from you. And one thread that ran through what you said is that the business of investing very much is based on relationships. You have clients who've been with you for decades, and a solid, successful person like you is definitely someone that it's easier to start and to maintain a relationship with, where it's something as important as this, your money, your savings, and so on. So again, we'll have more chats like this in the future, I hope, Jerry. You're a very busy person, but you've chosen to take time because you realize that this potential clientele or my guys, my alumni, they can use specific financial and investment advice. So thank you for coming on, and we'll do this again soon.
Okay, Lloyd, thank you very much for having me.
If you could just give us your contact information so any of our guys who want to be in contact with you can reach out to you directly.
Certainly. My cell phone number is 917-454-8464. And my email address is my name, Jerry Kempa. That's JERRYKEMPA @yahoo.com.
Very good. And for anyone watching this, you can also find Jerry's information on our website. You can see the article there where Wall Street meets cricket, and Jerry's cell phone number. That's the cell phone number, so you can have a personal contact with him and his personal email. So thank you very much, Jerry.
All right, Lloyd, thank you. It was my pleasure, and it was very good meeting with you in person a few days ago.
Same here. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.